So, what if I told you that the quality of your relationships with yourself, your students, and your colleagues is the single biggest factor shaping your classroom, your leadership, and your longevity in the profession? And what if I told you that transforming relationships does not start with your students, but it starts with you? Hey everyone, I am Dr. Alexis M. Terry. I'm an educator, a wellness coach, and I am the author of the book, Real Love Strategies for Reaching Students When They See No Way Out. I've spent over a decade in classrooms and schools and leadership spaces. And if I know one thing to be true, I know that instruction does not transform a classroom, relationships do. But not just these surface level kind of relationships, not the build rapport kind, not the smile more kind. I'm talking about real, sustaining, emotionally grounded relationships, starting with the relationship that you have with yourself. And let me tell you why this is important. And so, when I left the classroom and I jumped into the consulting world and I was leading professional developments with educators around culturally responsive pedagogical practices and the impact that they could have on classrooms and schools. One of the things that I quickly realized was one of the reasons why people in my professional development struggle to embrace and understand the power of being culturally responsive with students is because they weren't culturally responsive with themselves. They did not have a solid, affirming, healthy relationship with themselves. So they could not understand this concept of going in and building relationships with students and not just, again, surface level relationships, but deep, sustaining relationships with students because how you want me to do something with somebody else that I'm not even doing with myself? So before we jump into talking about relationships with students, I want to talk to you. Yes, you on the other side of that screen. Because educators who love kids, they don't leave the classroom. And educators, we don't leave the classroom because we hate kids. Educators are leaving the classroom because they're emotionally depleted, they're disconnected from themselves, and they're running on empty. And so here's the truth: you can't offer a patience you don't possess, you can't model regulation you don't practice, and you cannot create safety when you feel unsafe inside. And so, one of the things that is foundational to my framework, Real Love Strategies for, and let me tell you, I'm going to continue to talk about real love because the impact that my framework has had, not only on classrooms and schools across the country, but on my own life personally and professionally. And so, real love starts with self respect. And this kind of reminds me, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent. It reminds me about Therapy Thursday sermon from Jerry Flowers that I was listening to the other day about, the self respect that we can't stand on business sometimes because we don't have self respect for us. But that's a whole nother thing. So, what I want you to do when we think about self respect, I want you to ask yourself, and I'm looking at my notes, I want you to ask yourself these three questions. How do you talk to yourself on a hard day? Or since we're asking ourselves this question, how do I talk to myself on hard days? Do I allow myself to be human or do I expect perfection? When I mess up, do I reflect or do I shame myself? Asking yourself these three questions are important because many educators operate under an internal narrative of, I should be able to handle this. I should be able to do this. I should be able to reach my students. I should be able to internalize this lesson. I should be able to manage my classroom. I should be able to meet all of the different needs that my students have. And this narrative of I should be able to do these things, they are killing your joy. So, the first practical strategy, because you guys know I love to give practical, tangible strategies that you can implement right now to transform your life in your classroom. So, the first thing is daily 5-minute check in. One of the things that I teach educators who I work with through a wellness lens is spending 5 minutes a day when you come in your classroom, you clear off your lesson is set up before your students get there. One of the things that you need to do and you need to prioritize doing is just a daily 5-minute check-in. We're going to ask ourselves 3 questions. One, how am I feeling? Name how you're feeling without fixing it. If you were mad, it's okay to be mad. If you're grieving, it's okay to grieve. If you're hurt, be hurt. If you're tired, be tired. The next thing that you're going to do after you ask yourself, how are you feeling, and name it, what do you need? Or what should you do? If you're angry, what do you need in this moment right now to overcome the anger? If you're frustrated, what do you need? If you're hurt, what do you need right now and what should you do? And then the third question that you're going to ask yourself is, what does it look like to lead myself in love today? What does it look like to love me right now in this moment with what I'm experiencing? This is not selfish. This is stewardship. And again, this is what Geneva Gay refers to as refueling your reservoir of hope. Or what Audre Lorde says is this is practicing resistance, right? And claiming to yourself. So once you have checked in with yourself and you've established this habit of daily of checking in with yourself and thinking about the ways that you can improve your relationship with yourself, then you can think about, well, what does it look like to shift my relationship with my students, shift my mindset in my classroom and internally my heart posture and the way I navigate my educational space in a manner that I'm not reacting to things and I'm starting to respond. One of the things that I experienced myself as an educator is that I had to realize quickly that the way I was engaging and interacting with my students had nothing to do with my students, but it actually had a lot to do with what was going on with me and what was going on in my personal life, what was going on in my home, what was going on with my family. And so when I came into the classroom, students were just being students, right? And I was projecting everything that was going on outside of the classroom into my classroom. And guess what? Our students are doing the same thing. Majority of the times when our students are interacting with us, they are, whether it's positive or negative, they are interacting with us based on what they are experiencing externally outside of our classroom. So if something happened in the hallway, they're bringing that with them in our classroom. If something is happening at home with their parents, they're bringing this into their classroom. And this is why it's important to, one, have that relationship with your students where they have that space to come talk, but then two, thinking about like practicing empathy and grace and compassion and encouraging your students to practice empathy, grace, and compassion so that way you create this safe space where when things are happening they understand that Monica is coming to mind. Don't take it personal. But that they have that safe space in the classroom to where they can come as their authentic self. They can show these different sides to them and understanding that, you won't take it personal, but that you're there to be a welcoming space to them, give them the opportunity to release what's on the inside of them, and you're not holding on to it. And so one of the things that it's important for educators to understand when interacting with students and engaging with students is that our students don't want us to be perfect. They want us to be human, but they also need us to be regulated. They need us to be present and they need us to be emotionally honest and safe. And so when our students come into our classroom and we think about like, again, whether it's good behavior or bad behavior, what students are really asking us, even when they are acting in an undesirable manner, is, do I matter? Am I safe in your classroom? Will you say that I'm difficult? Are you going to turn your back, walk away, or are you going to lean in? And can you see who I'm becoming, not just what I did today, right? We want students need to see the human in us, but then also students are asking us to see the human in them. And so real love is asking us to separate the child from the behavior, right? As same manner that we want. And I think here's the deal is that as adults, we have not learned how to separate ourselves from our behavior and from our emotions, right? Just because you may be angry doesn't mean that you're an angry person, right? Just because you may be firm, like I had to tell my 6-year old this, be like, I'm being firm with you. That doesn't make me a bad mom. I'm just being firm, right? And so, but as an adult, how many of us have learned to separate our emotions and the things that we're feeling uh, from who we are and how we view ourselves and how we engage with ourselves, right? Like, I have to often tell my kids, like, you did something bad, but it doesn't mean that you were a bad person. You may have made a stupid decision, but that doesn't mean that you're stupid, right? And so we also have to help our students see this. But in order for us to be able to help our students see this, sometimes we have to kind of see this ourselves and acknowledge that we may be feeling something, we may have did something, we may have said something, but this is not who we are. Okay. So we got to be able to humanize ourselves so that that way we can humanize our students. So when we think about some practical strategies for the classroom, right? We want to create emotionally safe spaces for ourselves in the classroom and for our students. And so, what are some of the things that we can do? First is predictable emotional safety. So we greet students by name, we maintain consistent responses, and we follow through calmly. Um, we want to use language with our students and ourselves that regulate, right? And so instead of saying, what's wrong with you? And because as I'm thinking, I'm like, instead of saying this to your students, we need to be saying this to ourselves. But instead of saying, like, what is wrong with you? Like, try something like, hey, something's off. Let's talk. Then we need to seek restoration and repair over punishment. So when something happens in a classroom, how do we model apology? Again, not just with our students, but when we do something, sometimes our inner child and our inner selves, we need to apologize to ourselves. How do we allow students to repair harm? How do we teach accountability and not humiliation? And so when students experience repair, they learn this resilience and not fear. So now let's think about like relationship with others, colleagues, family, leaders in our building, because y'all know this. Sometimes the most challenging aspects of being in education and working in the school is not the children, it's the adults. It's the adults. And so many educators are honestly emotionally mature children. I'm going to sit with that. And emotionally exhausted with adults. And so, again, we are like, people do not understand. It's just like education is that profession that is full of flawed human beings being in one building all day at all ages and stages and levels of life, who are all bringing themselves, their realities, their lives into this one building. And then we are expected to play nice in the sandbox when we don't play nice with ourselves. And we just kind of have to learn these skills, right? And so when we think about like, how do we have these relationships with other people in a healthy and sustainable manner? It's about equal human worth and seeing the human that is in front of you. And so, again, just kind of like we have to see our students for who they are and the human that they are. We have to look at our peers and our colleagues and see them for the human that they are. And the the inner child that you are dealing with, that, and this is not in a like dehumanizing way, but just seeing this precious child, because most of us are acting from our saboteurs, who we developed these saboteurs, if you delved any into positive intelligence research, when we were about 5 years old, from navigating our surroundings and thinking about what do we need to protect ourselves. These saboteurs have developed, and these saboteurs are there, and they are thinking that, hey, I got to protect Alexis. Alexis doesn't know what's best for Alexis. And so, because Alexis doesn't know what's best, I have to jump in and protect Alexis. And so your saboteurs are controlling your thoughts are controlling your feelings are controlling your actions are controlling your results. And so when you are interacting with your colleagues, you have to look at your colleagues as a child who is trying to self protect, and one child is communicating from another child. Your saboteurs are talking to their saboteurs, and you guys are both like in this tussle of trying to get what you need to feel physically, emotionally, and psychologically safe. And so when we think about just the adults in the building, the adults that are emotionally exhausted, why? Some of us are emotionally exhausted because unclear boundaries, poor communication, unspoken expectations, power dynamics, the lack of psychological safety, especially as an educator of color. All of these things are going on in our heads. And so, one of the things that is important to think about again is this is another human being in front of me. And I'm not saying that, I need to let all my guards down and all my boundaries down, because you need to have boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are clarity. And to be clear is to be kind, but you also have to understand that you are dealing with another flawed human being who is also looking to have a core need met. And they are looking to you to have a core need met, just like you are looking to your students, and your students are looking to you to have a core need met. So when we're dealing with our colleagues in the building, like, what are some things that we can do to strengthen a relationship so that way we are transforming our experience when we walk into that school? And so some of the things that I like to do when interacting with other adults in education is name the expectation early, right? Unmet expectations lead to disappointment. And so, one of the things that is important to do is that we name and we establish our expectations early. We do it with our students. We do it with our friends. Hopefully we do it with our friends. We do it with our partners. So we need to do it with our colleagues too. And so, what are the expectations? Like, here's what I can commit to, and here's what I need support with, right? I can commit to coming to work on time, and I need support with you holding students accountable. I need support with you modeling instruction. Um, Respond, don't react. And so, one of the things that I like to do before I make a response to anything is I like to pause. So pause before replying. You separate the emotion from the message, and you seek understanding before defense. Again, one of the things, it's important that we pause, because pausing helps us to identify, okay, what are the thoughts going on in my head? Are these thoughts here to protect me? Are they serving me well, or are they causing harm? And then, what are the things that I need to do next? For me, pausing is also important, because pausing helps me to think about, well, what is my own saboteur that is showing up right now? What Why am I on a defense, or what's happening inside of me, right? So one of my top saboteurs, and I'm going back to this, and I can make a video. If this is something that you want another video on, understanding, through a positive intelligence lens, our saboteurs and how to tap into sages and how our saboteurs show up, let me know in the comments, and that's something that I can definitely create for you. But when you pause, you want to stop and you want to examine your own saboteurs. They might be showing up, and how these saboteurs are influencing or trying to get you to protect yourself, right? Because remember, thoughts influence feelings, feelings influence actions, actions influence results. So if you don't pause, right? You don't give yourself to think about, like, what are the thoughts that are going through in my head? Are these thoughts actually true? How are these thoughts making me feel right now? Do I want to feel this way? And what new thoughts do I need to develop in order to change the outcome of the situation, the direction where this is going? So then the third thing is you want to protect your energy, right? You don't owe access to everyone, right? Protect your energy, protect your time, protect your capacity. And you can do all those things through a lens of love, through a lens of peace. And again, just through a lens of clarity and expectation. And so, when educators, again, when it's all about bringing real love into the classroom. When we practice real love with ourselves, we practice it with our students, we practice it with our colleagues, then we create these educational spaces in schools that are emotionally safe, they're academically rigorous, because we have the capacity now to really design meaningful, intentional lessons. We are culturally responsible with ourselves and others. And we create schools and classrooms that are sustainable. And so this is not doing extra work. This is doing work that is essential for yourself and for your others. And so if this resonates with you, I want to know something. And I want you to know something, that you're not failing, you are fatigued. And the way that you can start seeing transformation is through right practices, reflection, and support. And you can reconnect with your purpose and the people that are surrounding you daily. So, if you want deeper strategies for building real love in your classroom, I want you to grab a copy of my book, Real Love Strategies for Reaching Students When They See No Way Out. And if you're ready to work on transforming your classroom, transforming your leadership with alignment and sustainable practices, stay connected because more is coming. And before we close out, I want you to remember, be real, love hard, teach truth, and lead well. Until next time, bye bye.